I've been trying to get into Monster Hunter for over 15 years. My first attempt was a demo disc for Monster Hunter Tri on the Wii. So this was in a box in the closet, and I'm actually recording this sequence second, but let's pretend I had it the whole time. It is still sealed because, I got 2 of them. I don't remember how I had 2 of them, but yeah, this is kind of a neat thing to have sealed, by the way. I don't think I can. And I never really got around to delving too deep into it. Then there was a huge fuss around Monster Hunter World, so naturally I picked it up, but it just didn't click for me, and this was back on the PS4 at launch too. See? I actually have it. I have it, it's right here. I have no idea where this came from. Then came Monster Hunter Rise, and I gave that one a shot too. But I got in pretty late, and I became pretty overwhelmed, and basically everyone I knew had already played the games a ton more than I did. So I fell off of it pretty hard, but I did enjoy what I played, it just didn't hook me, because I almost felt like an outsider. So for Monster Hunter Wilds, I decided I wanted to get in on day 1 to give the series one final try on even ground with everyone else. And thanks to Capcom, who provided me with a review copy, I can now officially say that I finally get it. I am hooked. Here's the short version. This is a game where you take a ludicrously impractical weapon and commit repeated acts of zoological violence, all in the noble pursuit of drip. And other stuff, but mainly drip. And you have a ton of fun doing it. But let's start with the visuals. This game is incredibly beautiful, but not just kind of like in the high graphical fidelity way, but rather the whole game has this really fantastic sense of cohesion and beauty. Sure, the environments in general just look great, and the mud for some reason looks insane. The character models look pretty good, but the true highlight, for me at least, is the insanely realistic and fluid animations, along with some excellent cinematography in a lot of the cutscenes. I do have some complaints about the story, which I'll get to, but one thing this game absolutely nails every single time is the scale and intensity of the cutscenes, especially the cutscenes that focus on the monsters. The production value of these feel like the kind of thing you'd see in other massive AAA RPGs, which for a series that used to be incredibly niche, is remarkable to see. And I really love this. The animation and cutscene teams really are at the top of their game here. I don't know what magic they have at Capcom, but keep it up. To touch on the gameplay, there's a lot of stuff thrown at you if you're relatively new to the series, and there's a huge variety of weapons, gear, crafting systems, inventory management, and a whole bunch more, and it can feel kind of overwhelming at first, but it's not too complex to figure out if you just give it a bit of patience, and fortunately, some of the weapons are pretty easy to learn. In what I believe to be a first for the series, you can actually carry 2 weapons at any given time, which you can switch between by hopping on your Sacred, this game's take on a horse. I like this a lot because it means that I get to try more than one weapon and kind of figure out where my comfort zone is. I went with the bow as my primary weapon, with the hammer as my secondary to get some more damage when the monster's down. And speaking of those Sacreds, these make traversing a massive, nearly seamless world a lot more intuitive. They are, for all intents and purposes, kind of a bird horse, but that means you can glide with them if you're jumping from a tall cliffside, along with the ability to run straight up climbable walls. And yes, I am aware that these are basically Capcom chocobos, but as a Final Fantasy fan, I see nothing wrong with that. The game has quite a bit to do, and unlike my experience with previous games, everything feels a lot more seamless. You can just kind of run out into the world and fight things, or explore, or just go goof around if you want. However, this leads to one of my biggest complaints, which is that the game sometimes kind of bites you on this. For starters, there's far too many story segments where you're forced to slowly walk through the environment. I get wanting to take in the sights, and the game is undoubtedly gorgeous, but the pace is destroyed by these segments every single time. There was never a time where I was super happy to go from high-impact chaos action to just kind of walking slowly, and if you try to walk too fast, the game's like, no, 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 you're gonna stay on the beaten path. And the story itself is mildly interesting, but in my opinion, not even close to as interesting as just kind of hunting monsters. And while I haven't finished the story yet, I've been told it opens up a lot more later, but that doesn't make having to deal with this pacing issue now any less painful. Here's a really specific example. There were a bunch of times where I wanted to take a break from the story, but the game forced me to continue, locking away my ability to fast travel or veer off of a linear path. There was a certain point in the game where I wanted to experiment with some different weapon types, and in order to do that, you have to go to a training area connected to the main hub. My options were to run there from the secondary hub, or to fast travel from the secondary hub. However, the game refused to let me leave that secondary hub until I progressed the story for like 2 more hours. This is kind of rare railroading, I guess? And for the record, if the specific hub area I was in had a spot to test weapons, I could not find it. I've been told by a lot of people, again, that the stories in these games are basically just tutorials, but I still don't like being limited in the freedom I have, especially in a game that feels so much more free than previous games. And I'll be honest, while I do like the characters, I've again noticed that I'm really just not too invested in the story itself. But on the other hand, I would argue that the game's story is not as important a factor as the actual moment-to-moment gameplay, because when this game hits, it hits. There is nothing as exhilarating as taking on a massive threatening monster that looks like it could kill you with one stomp and probably wants to, only to break it down bit by bit until it's actively running away from you. And the production value is just insane. Every fight feels like a climactic moment, even if it's just a standard run-of-the-mill monster, because every monster has unique characteristics and behaviors, making every encounter feel fresh and fun. You never know what's gonna happen. Sometimes I do feel kinda bad for the monsters when they start cowering, but then I realize the alternative is that they kill me, so you give some, you take some, I guess. What enhances the experience is bringing friends along, because see, these games make excellent use of allowing basically anybody, friends or strangers, to join in on the hunts, and everybody gets to reap the rewards. I love that I never feel like I have to fight over resources or monster drops or items in the world, which are important if you want to absolutely maximize your drip, by the way, which side tangent. The armor in this game is unrealistically stylish, and I am here for it. Like, you're looking at early game gear. Tell me this dude doesn't get mad attention from like every modeling agency. But back to the co-op stuff. I love playing this with friends, and the monsters are big and strong enough that even a higher level friend isn't just gonna stomp them in 10 seconds. So you never really have to worry about a level gap all too much. However, I do think the method to connect with friends can be a little bit obtuse and frustrating, specifically with the crossplay. I've played with some PS5 friends, but don't ask me how I did it, because I genuinely could not tell you. It feels like it changes every single time. It's a feature that you almost have to kind of feel out. At least with Steam, you can just invite friends from the built-in overlay. I know I'm jumping around a lot here, but I want to talk about the performance for a second too. The game runs pretty darn well at 1440p, frame generation, and nearly the highest settings on my PC. However, I know that a lot of people are not having that experience on their PC. And yeah, I gotta say, this game requires a bit of a beefy machine to play. If you're on the fence because you're not sure if your PC can handle it too well and you have a PS5, I recommend downloading the free benchmark, but if you have any doubts at all, just get the PS5 version. Now, earlier I said that I wanted to get in on the game at the same time as everyone else, and while it did help me enjoy this game more, please understand that that's kind of a personal preference thing. I think I would have liked the game either way. I just wanted to give myself the best opportunity to like the game. I wanted to give the game a chance. So getting in on day one was the best way for that to happen, and now I'm a fan of the series. This game has been phenomenal, and it's been a blast, and I love playing it. The traversal is fun, fighting is fun, learning how to use each weapon is fun, and the spectacle just never stops. During a hunt with friends, there's rarely if ever a dull moment. If you're looking to have an absolute blast, mindlessly or mindfully slaying gigantic monsters, there's no better place to do it than Monster Hunter Wilds. But yeah, I'm gonna get back to beating up giant lizards, but before I go, I want to thank my patrons and channel members, including That's Ash and Megalopolis in the Played Every Game tier, along with the absolutely wonderful people you see on your screen. And of course, thank you for your support, and thank you for watching, and a huge thanks to Capcom for providing a review copy. I'll see you very, very soon in the second installment of a multi-hour retrospective, by the way. But until then, well, actually, one more thing. You'll find out. But until then, have a fantastic day.